editor and columnist at The National, Shona Craven. Shona and Charlotte, thanks very much for being with us. Shona, you're going to start us off with the story that's on the front page of The Times.
Yeah, this is a story about immigration. The headline is Net Fall in Migration Set to Stall. The Home Office fears that annual net migration will settle above the 340,000 level expected by the government unless radical policies are introduced. And one of the reasons for this is migrants staying longer than previously thought. In terms of the radical measures, there's not necessarily a huge amount of detail on that, but we are reminded that Keir Starmer is not keen to set sort of numerical targets, but of course the headlines will constantly refer to those, and we're talking about a lot of different kinds of people, including students coming on student visas and then remaining in the UK subsequent to that. But we are also talking about people claiming asylum, and so one of the measures that is mentioned as part of the plans is to change the law to constrain judges' interpretation of Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. And one example cited is where somebody who's had their asylum claim rejected claims to have a close connection with children in the country, having not been part of their lives in the years leading up to that. So that's quite interesting. I hadn't seen that cited as an example. But again, you know, you have cases like that which affect the asylum applications in the country, but you also have other issues such as student visas and things like that. So again, when it comes back to this numbers game, it becomes a question of, you know, the fact we do need immigration, but the public narrative, obviously, especially with the rise of Reform UK, tends to be deaf to sort of rational argument when it comes to immigration. So that is the big challenge.
It's interesting, the Labour government didn't reverse the Tory changes that sort of started bringing the numbers down in terms of some of those thresholds for student visas and for the amount of money that dependents had to be able to bring in as well. And we're about to have this sort of reset with the EU, aren't we, where it may well provide movement for younger people to come in as well.
Well, it might, but obviously things haven't gone very well for Starmer ahead of that reset either. And again, it comes down to, you know, do we want carers coming to the country, you know, who have dependent children? We need the carers, but again, if you're focusing on this number, then it might create some perverse incentives to actually do damage to the country in the name of fighting off this reform threat. Yeah, all right. Charlotte, got a story here. Go on.
I love this story.
Good. So I was about to say the same thing.
There's a school which has banned mobile phones, and the average grade has gone up from C to B.
What
it's
a
kind
surprise.
of not rocket science. Right. But what astonishes me is this headmaster really had to be incredibly brave, actually, because first of all, he was facing an uphill battle to remove the phones, obviously, from the teenagers who were furious with him. But I think also the parents are kind of resistant, and that actually, you know, the government has actually opposed measures to ban mobile phones in under 16-year-olds. And it just seems crazy that it takes an individual headmaster to be incredibly brave to instill these kind of new policies for these things to happen. And he said it's been miraculous. And he's also said that children are really, really lovely and sweet in the classroom, are absolute trolls online. And taking away their mobile phones has allowed their true lovely nature to come out, allowed them to interact nicely with one another. And he says that, you know, when they go online, they become unrecognisable. And, you know, it's such an obvious thing to do, take the phones away from the school.
So it's happening at the Excelsior Academy in Hackney, and the average grade at A-level improved from a C to a B. And look, as a father of a 4-year-old who's very nervous about when he eventually wants his phone, it has to be a collective thing. If this is going to happen, we all have to do it together, because if you leave one child or one family out, then they're going to feel the pressure of having the phone.
And that's why he was so brave, because, you know, he had to come up against a lot of resistance, basically.
Absolutely. All right.
But they thanked him.
Yeah, well done. And maybe other schools will now start following suit, especially the exam grades go up. Shona, you got for us in the Daily Express?
Yeah, so the Daily Express, a few of the papers are talking about weight loss jabs. This is ahead of an event in Spain, which is the European Congress on Obesity in Malaga. And so there's been analysis done of the benefits of having really a lot of people, millions of people, this is in England, going on to weight loss jabs, losing weight, improving their health, and as the headline suggests, getting them back to work. So, yeah.
Shona, sorry to interrupt you, Charlotte. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back. My apologies. I'm now being told we're going to go to Kyiv. where, as I told you earlier, the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, as well as the French President Emmanuel Macron, there I can see President Zelensky and the First Lady of Ukraine there too, as well as Donald Tusk. It's the first time that these four senior European leaders have met in Kyiv, and they are looking to try and increase the pressure on Vladimir Putin to bring about an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. That call was reiterated by President Zelensky just a couple of days ago. It was backed up, perhaps for the first time, really, by President Trump as well, after the two men had a telephone call. And now you've got these four senior leaders there. Donald Tusk there on the left, next to the First Lady of Ukraine, Keir Starmer, of course, you can see there, Emmanuel Macron, slightly brought by Zelensky, and the new Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz. They are currently in Maidan Square, of course, which is a centre of Kyiv with great historical significance of the desire for independence for Ukrainian people. The discussion will, of course, continue. I'm sure they'll move inside and have their high-level talks as they look to try and push towards that 30-day unconditional ceasefire. We're still in the middle of Putin's unilaterally declared 3-day ceasefire, but these leaders will be hoping they can bring peace to Ukraine in the near term. Friedrich Merz actually said that it could well begin this weekend if the talks go well. We'll keep an eye on the situation in Kyiv. But guys, sorry to interrupt you. We'll go back to our papers. You were talking about obesity jabs. Finish your point.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so we're talking about a potential 4.5 billion boost to the UK economy, which is a good thing, but there are some slightly concerning elements to this. Perhaps we have someone, the Director of Health Policy at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, saying tackling obesity through faster, broader access to these drugs should be a key priority for any government looking to drive both health and wealth in the economy. And I suppose the question to ask, well, the Daily Express is asking people to phone in and say, should the NHS provide weight loss drugs to help people get back to work? I suppose the question is, at what point do people go, great, yes, thank you, I want these drugs, I want to improve my health, I want to get back to work? Where does that tip over into people feeling obliged to take these drugs, for which there are side effects, for which are still relatively novel, and then people saying, well, you have to do this because we need you to be working rather than claiming benefits?
Yeah, it's a very, very tricky area that we're going to be exploring, aren't we? Because we're learning as we're going along with this.
Yeah.
It's brand new. All right, let's move on to the Mail now, inside pages here. I mean, I think it's worth reading out the headline there that's been written.
All right, so I'm going to put my best Jan Moir
Please.
voice on. What kind of society produces two men so dumb and emotionally stunted that their biggest achievement in life has been to create a stump?
It's fantastic.
And I think, I mean, obviously Jan Moir's brilliant at this kind of stuff. I mean, what it sums up is, I mean, she calls them actually Gollum and Hobbity men, and they're known as the odd couple. They're these kind of best friends. They spent all their time together. They texted each other all day, every day, and they came up with this crazy idea to cut down the sycamore tree. And we don't really still know the motivation. There's been some talk that one of them was annoyed by a neighbour, the other one wanted a trophy for his daughter. I couldn't believe how old they were. I always assumed it was teenage, you know, kind of rebellious kind of idiots, basically. But it turns out they're kind of mature 39-year-old idiots.
It takes a long time for some people to mature, as I speak of a personal
Unlike the
experience.
tree.
Right, yeah. I mean, thankfully, though, on the tree, there are some little sparks of growth. There are shoots, so, I mean, it's going to take hundreds of years to grow back, but it will grow back. It is a trust.
Yes, I hope so.
Let's hope.
These guys will still be in prison for a bit longer, I think.
All right, quickly then, let's move on, Shona. We're going to look... Uh-oh. Is it the Daily Mirror here?
Yeah, on Bex.
We can do.
Yes, go on to the Bex one, because I've got that one in front of me as well.
It's war, apparently, is the Showbiz exclusive in the Mirror. And this is all sources having a private war.
Who's at war?
So, Victoria and David Beckham are having a row with their son Brooklyn, who did not take part in Brand Beckham's 50th birthday celebrations for David. And apparently, so Brooklyn, being the eldest son, his wife, Nicola Peltz, has apparently helped her husband see the emotional abuse and toxic behaviour within his family. We have echoes of Prince Harry here, I think, with Brooklyn Beckham,
the new royals,
who,
eh?
let's remember, has been in the spotlight since he was born and is maybe less keen on being in the spotlight now.
You would have thought so. All right, Shona, Charlotte, thanks both for that. Sorry to not let you come in and give your thoughts on that, but of course we'll have more on the day's papers in the next hour of the programme. Well, do stay with us, because we have plenty more coming up in the next hour of Sky News Breakfast as we continue our coverage of the situation between India and Pakistan, as both sides seem to have given a rhetorical, at least, off-ramp to the violence.
We arrive